What happens when one of Hollywood's most unpredictable actors sits down with one of daytime television's most combative hosts? Well, you're about to find out because Nicolas Cage's appearance on The View turned into an absolute disaster that nobody saw coming. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how not to treat a guest. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Nicolas Cage walked off that set and why Joy Behar's behavior was completely out of line. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story gets wild. Now, let's dive in. It was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance. Nicolas Cage was making the rounds for his latest film, and The View was just another stop on the press tour. The actor arrived at the studio in good spirits, chatting with crew members and even taking selfies with a few fans who had gathered outside. He seemed relaxed, maybe even excited to be there. After all, The View had a massive audience, and any actor would want that kind of exposure for their project. But from the moment Cage walked onto that stage, something felt off. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Sunny Hostin, greeted him warmly enough, but Joy Behar barely looked up from her notes. She gave him a quick nod, nothing more. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Cage took his seat, flashing that trademark smile that had charmed moviegoers for decades. "Nicolas, welcome back to The View," Whoopi began, her voice warm and professional. "It's always great to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Cage replied, settling into his chair. "I'm excited to talk about the new film." "Before we get to that," Joy interrupted, not even waiting for Whoopi to finish the introduction, "I have to ask you about some of your past choices. I mean, let's be honest, you've made some pretty questionable movies over the years." The studio went quiet. Even the audience seemed taken aback by the bluntness of the question. Cage's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, Joy, I think every actor has projects they look back on differently," he said diplomatically. "But I've always tried to bring something unique to every role, whether it's a big-budget blockbuster or an independent film. Unique is certainly one way to put it." Joy shot back, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "I mean, some of those performances were so over the top, they became memes. Don't you think that's a little embarrassing?" Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably in her seat. This wasn't the direction anyone expected the interview to go. Cage, for his part, remained calm, though his jaw tightened slightly. "I don't think there's anything embarrassing about putting yourself out there creatively," he responded. "Acting is about taking risks, about finding truth in characters, even if they're unconventional. If some people find that amusing, that's their prerogative." "Truth in characters?" Joy laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Come on, Nicolas. Some of those performances weren't about truth, they were about paycheck. We all know you had some financial troubles a few years back. Is that why you took on so many projects that were, let's say, beneath your talent level?" The other hosts exchanged glances. Whoopi cleared her throat, clearly trying to steer the conversation in a different direction, but Joy wasn't done. "I mean, you're an Academy Award winner?" she continued, her voice dripping with false concern. "Doesn't it bother you that people are more likely to remember you from those direct-to-video movies than from your serious work?" Cage's demeanor began to shift. The diplomatic smile was fading, replaced by something harder, more defensive. "Joy, I think you're oversimplifying things," he said, his voice taking on a slight edge. "Yes, I've taken on a variety of projects for different reasons. Some were passion projects, some were commercial ventures, and yes, some were financial necessities, but I've never phoned in a performance. I've always given everything I had to every role." "Everything you had?" Joy pressed. "Really? Because I've seen some of those movies, and it looked more like you were just cashing checks." Sunny Hostin jumped in, clearly trying to diffuse the tension. "Nicolas, let's talk about your new film. What drew you to this particular project?" But Joy wasn't ready to let go. "No, wait, I want to finish this thought. Nicolas, don't you think you owe your fans better than some of the garbage you've put out?" The word garbage hung in the air like a slap. Cage's eyes flashed, and for a moment, everyone could see the famous Cage intensity that had made him a star. "Garbage?" he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "Joy, I think you're being incredibly disrespectful. Every project I've worked on employed dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. Every movie, no matter how it was received, was the result of passionate, hardworking individuals trying to tell a story." "Oh, please." Joy waved her hand dismissively. "Don't give me that noble artist routine. You took easy money for easy work, and now you're trying to spin it as some kind of artistic statement. Whoopi tried to intervene again. Joy, maybe we should. No, Whoopi, let me finish. Joy cut her off. Nicholas, I'm just saying what everyone is thinking. Your career has been a roller coaster, and some of those lows were really, really low. Don't you think it's time to acknowledge that? Cage sat back in his chair, studying Joy with a look that was equal parts disbelief and growing anger. The audience was completely silent now, sensing that something was about to explode. You know what, Joy? Cage said finally, his voice carefully controlled but vibrating with barely contained fury. I came here to talk about my work, to share something I'm passionate about with your viewers. But instead, you've decided to use this platform to take cheap shots and tear down someone who's been working in this industry for over 30 years. I'm not tearing you down, Joy protested, though her tone suggested she was enjoying every minute of this. I'm just asking honest questions that your fans deserve answers to. Honest questions? Cage's voice rose slightly. You're not asking questions, Joy. You're making accusations. You're sitting there smugly, passing judgment on choices you know nothing about, circumstances you've never faced. The other hosts were visibly uncomfortable now. Sarah was fidgeting with her notes, Sunny was staring at the table, and Whoopi looked like she wanted to crawl under her chair. I know enough, Joy shot back. I know that when you're desperate for money, you'll take any job that comes along, regardless of quality. That was the breaking point. Cage's face went through a transformation that everyone in that studio would remember forever. The carefully maintained composure cracked, and what emerged was pure, unfiltered Nicolas Cage. Desperate? He said, his voice now carrying that unmistakable intensity that had made him famous. You want to talk about desperate, Joy? Let's talk about desperate. Desperate is a talk show host who thinks her job is to humiliate guests instead of having a conversation. Desperate is someone who sits behind a desk and takes pot shots at people who actually create things. Joy's eyes widened. She clearly hadn't expected this level of pushback. Excuse me? I'm doing my job. I'm asking the tough questions that... Tough questions? Cage interrupted, leaning forward in his chair. No, Joy, tough questions would be about craft, about process, about the challenges of bringing characters to life. What you're doing is tabloid journalism disguised as legitimate interview technique. The audience was riveted. Some were uncomfortable, others were clearly enjoying the drama, but everyone was watching. This was television gold, even if it was going completely off the rails. I don't have to sit here and take this from someone whose career peaked 20 years ago, Joy snapped, her professional mask finally slipping completely. 20 years ago? Cage's voice rose another notch. Joy, I was nominated for an Academy Award 3 years ago. I've been working consistently, taking on challenging roles, pushing boundaries. What have you been doing? Sitting at this table, making the same tired jokes, asking the same surface-level questions. Whoopi finally found her voice. Okay, everyone, let's just take a breath here and... No, Whoopi, Cage said, his attention still laser-focused on Joy. I want to understand something. Joy, what exactly do you think you're accomplishing here? Do you think this is entertaining? Do you think your viewers tune in to watch you tear down guests? I think our viewers appreciate honesty, Joy shot back. They appreciate someone who won't just let celebrities come on here and spin fairy tales about their careers. Fairy tales? Cage stood up from his chair, and the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. Joy, everything I've told you today has been completely honest. I've acknowledged that I've made different choices for different reasons. I've never pretended otherwise. But you're not interested in honesty, are you? You're interested in creating drama and getting a reaction. Sit down, Nicholas, Joy said, her voice taking on a commanding tone. You're being completely unprofessional. I'm being unprofessional? Cage's laugh was sharp and bitter. You ambush me with personal attacks, you dismiss my work as garbage, you make assumptions about my motivations, and I'm the one being unprofessional? Sarah Haynes tried to jump in. Maybe we could talk about the new movie. No, Sarah, we're way past that now, Cage said, though his tone with her was much gentler. Joy has made it clear that she's not interested in having a respectful conversation about my work. Joy leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. You know what your problem is, Nicholas? You can't handle criticism. You've been surrounded by yes-men for so long that when someone tells you the truth, you have a meltdown. The truth? Cage's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Joy, you wouldn't know the truth if it walked up and introduced itself. You sit here every day, offering opinions on subjects you know nothing about, judging people whose lives you've never lived. I know enough about the entertainment industry to... You know enough to what? Cage cut her off. To host a talk show? Congratulations, Joy. That's not the same as actually being in the arena, actually taking the risks, actually putting yourself on the line creatively. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Crew members were standing frozen, unsure whether to intervene or just let this play out. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear. You want to know something about taking risks, Joy? Cage continued, his voice building in intensity. Every time an actor steps in front of a camera, they're taking a risk. Every time we commit to a character, we're putting our reputation, our credibility, our entire career on the line. And sometimes those risks don't pay off the way we hoped. But at least we're out there trying, creating, contributing something to the world. Oh, please, Joy scoffed. Don't act like you're some kind of martyr for art. You made bad movies for money, plain and simple. And what do you make, Joy? Cage fired back. What do you contribute? You sit here and tear down people who are actually doing something. You offer nothing constructive, nothing helpful, nothing that makes the world a better place. Joy's face was turning red now. I provide commentary. I provide perspective. You provide meanness, Cage interrupted. You provide cruelty disguised as insight, and the worst part is, you seem to enjoy it. Sonny Hostin made another attempt to restore order. Nicolas, Joy, I think we're all getting a little heated here. Heated? Cage turned to look at Sonny, and his expression softened slightly. Sonny, I came here in good faith. I prepared for this interview. I was ready to have a real conversation about my work, about the industry, about anything your viewers might find interesting. Instead, I've been subjected to a character assassination disguised as journalism. He turned back to Joy, and the fire returned to his eyes. You want to know what's really embarrassing, Joy? It's not taking on challenging roles that don't work out perfectly. It's not trying new things and occasionally failing. What's embarrassing is being so bitter, so negative, that you can't even pretend to be civil to a guest on your own show. I don't have to pretend anything, Joy snapped. This is my show, and if you don't like my questions, you can leave. Your show? Cage looked around at the other hosts. Last I checked, this was called The View, not the Joy Behar Hour. But you're right about one thing. If you don't want to have a respectful conversation, I absolutely can leave. Whoopi finally managed to speak up. Nicolas, please, let's just... No, Whoopi, it's okay, Cage said, his voice suddenly calm again. I understand what this is now. This isn't an interview, it's an ambush. And I don't participate in ambushes. Joy leaned forward, a triumphant look in her eyes. So you're just going to run away when things get tough? Run away? Cage's composure cracked again. Joy, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes while you've done everything in your power to humiliate me on national television. I've answered your questions. I've defended my choices. I've tried to have a civil conversation despite your obvious hostility. If leaving a toxic situation is running away, then yes, I'm running away. Typical Hollywood prima donna, Joy muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. That was the final straw. Cage's face went completely still, and when he spoke, his voice was ice cold. Prima donna? Cage repeated, his voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. Joy, let me tell you what a prima donna actually is. A prima donna is someone who demands special treatment, who throws tantrums when they don't get their way, who believes the world revolves around them. He stood up slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving Joy's face. A prima donna is someone who thinks their opinion is so important that they can treat other people like garbage and call it journalism. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Cage held up his hand. No, Joy, you've had your turn. You've spent the last 20 minutes trying to tear me down, trying to embarrass me, trying to make yourself look clever at my expense. Now it's my turn. The studio was dead silent. Even the camera operator seemed frozen in place, afraid to move and break the spell of this incredible moment. You want to talk about my career choices? Fine, let's talk about choices, Cage continued, his voice building steadily. I chose to take risks. I chose to work with young filmmakers who couldn't afford A-list actors. I chose to say yes to projects that other actors wouldn't touch because they were too worried about their image. He began walking toward Joy's side of the table, and she actually leaned back in her chair. I chose to keep working, to keep creating, to keep contributing to an art form that I love, even when it meant taking on projects that weren't perfect. What did you choose, Joy? You chose to sit behind a desk and judge people. You chose to be negative, to be cruel, to be small. I'm not going to sit here and let you lecture me, Joy said, but her voice lacked the confidence it had earlier. You're absolutely right, Cage agreed. You're not going to sit there and let me lecture you, because I'm done talking to you. But before I go, I want everyone in this studio, everyone watching at home, to understand something. He turned to face the camera directly, his intensity focused like a laser beam. When you invite someone onto your show, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to treat them with basic human decency. You have a responsibility to ask fair questions and listen to the answers. You have a responsibility to create an environment where actual conversation can happen. Turning back to Joy, his voice grew louder. Joy Behar has failed in every one of those responsibilities today. She came into this interview with an agenda, with a desire to humiliate and tear down, and she's pursued that agenda regardless of how it reflects on this show, on this network, or on herself. Joy tried to interrupt. You can't come on my show and... Your show? Cage's voice exploded. This is supposed to be a show about different perspectives, different viewpoints, different women sharing their thoughts. But you've turned it into the Joy Behar character assassination hour. Whoopi finally stood up. Nicolas, Joy, I think we need to. Whoopi, with all due respect, this needed to happen. Cage said, his tone gentle with her, but his eyes still blazing. Someone needed to call out this behavior, because if no one says anything, it just gets worse. He looked around at Sarah and Sunny. You're both intelligent, thoughtful women, and I'm sorry you had to witness this. This isn't how professional interviews are supposed to go. Joy stood up now, too, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Get out of here, Nicolas. Just get out. I'm going, Cage said calmly, but I want to say one more thing to your viewers. He looked directly into the camera again. When you watch interviews, when you consume media, demand better, demand respect. Demand actual journalism instead of cheap shots disguised as tough questions. He started walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. Joy, I genuinely hope you take some time to think about what happened here today, because this isn't normal, this isn't okay. And somewhere along the way, you've forgotten that the people who come on this show are human beings, not punching bags for your personal entertainment. Joy's voice cracked with fury. Don't you dare tell me how to do my job. I've been in this business longer than. Length of time doesn't equal quality, Joy. Cage cut her off one final time. And what you demonstrated today wasn't journalism, it wasn't entertainment, it was just plain cruel. The other host sat in stunned silence as Cage unclipped his microphone and set it on the table. The audience was completely quiet, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or just process what they had witnessed. This is what happens when ego becomes more important than integrity. Cage said, addressing the camera one last time. When personal attacks become more important than actual conversation, when making someone look bad becomes more important than making good television. He looked at Whoopi, Sarah, and Sunny. Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry it ended this way. As he walked toward the exit, Joy called after him. Fine, leave. Run away like the coward you are. Cage stopped dead in his tracks. Slowly, he turned around, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on everyone in the studio. Joy, I've survived in Hollywood for over 30 years. I've worked with the best directors, the most talented actors, the most creative minds in the industry. I've been nominated for Academy Awards, I've won critical acclaim, I've entertained millions of people around the world. If standing up to a bully makes me a coward in your eyes, then I'll wear that label proudly. He paused at the studio door. Good luck with the rest of your show. I hope your next guest is better prepared for what passes as an interview around here. And with that, Nicolas Cage walked out of the View studio, leaving behind one of the most explosive television moments in recent memory. Joy Behar sat frozen in her chair, the reality of what had just happened beginning to sink in. The other hosts looked shell-shocked, and the audience sat in stunned silence. It was clear that something fundamental had shifted in that studio. What was supposed to be a simple promotional interview had become a masterclass in how not to treat a guest, and Nicolas Cage had called it out in the most direct, uncompromising way possible. The cameras kept rolling for a few more seconds, capturing the aftermath of the explosion, before finally cutting to commercial. But the damage was done, and everyone knew it. This wasn't just a bad interview, it was a complete professional meltdown, and Joy Behar had been the architect of her own destruction. So there you have it, the complete breakdown of how Nicolas Cage got kicked off The View after his viral clash with Joy Behar. What did you think of Cage's response? Do you think he was justified in walking out, or should he have stayed and tried to salvage the interview? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.